So, I've already done a reaction to this. I've already seen this during the special program, but on rewatch I noticed a lot going on with this, and the more I think about it, the more important it gets. Something that I don't know if a lot of the community is actually aware of is that what happened to Dan Feng / Dan Heng and Bailu / Bai Heng isn't actually really his fault. The use of the transmutation arcanum was actually mentioned to Dan Feng by someone else who we actually see in this trailer, who is potentially one of the true ones responsible for that entire mess. And that is this guy, who for one...
Scepter Tauron.
The disciples of Sanctus Medicus.
We now have confirmation that he's tied to the disciples of Sanctus Medicus, which, to be fair, is really not surprising at all, the more I think about it. You can see that he's got a horn on one side and it's almost like a tree branch. And this guy, we've actually heard his voice before. He was in one of the other trailers. One of the Myriad Celestia trailers talking about the heritage of the Vidyadhara. And we know from the dialogue within Bailu's story, I was going to say story quest, during Bailu's companion mission, that potentially multiple members of the Vidyadhara were experimenting to try and actually create some sort of means of reproduction by creating new Vidyadhara with the hope of saving their species. It seems to be one of the main concerns of people within this race, because they can't naturally reproduce. And Bailu is something that they consider a success, but also a miracle. There are undestroyed letters regarding this situation, regarding to Bailu being incredibly special, and they don't expect another miracle like that again, and in order to get something like that to happen again, it requires more research. Bailu has basically encouraged their work, because she was an unintentional success, and exactly what they were after. They successfully turned Bai Heng into a Vidyadhara. Yes, she was an abomination dragon at first, but ultimately that dragon had a successful hatching rebirth, and is one of the progeny of a High Elder, which, based on our knowledge, shouldn't be possible. They shouldn't know the secrets of the transmutation arcanum, and Dan Feng and others like him, other High Elders, are the same entities throughout. Like, randomly people don't just become High Elders. If one of them disappears, that position's gone, it seems. And here we are with someone who has scales on his hand and a horn, despite just being a preceptor, and there's proof that the preceptors aren't meant to have them because we have official artwork of the original incarnation of Dan Heng with the preceptors when they sealed the ambrosial arbor, and none of them are depicted with horns. Yet this guy has one. It's highly questionable. And we see further ahead, and I only noticed this on rewatch because it took a moment to actually realize what was going on. You do see Dan Heng in this trailer, which I did notice, but you actually see Lingsha directly behind him, and we know she's involved in trying to help solve this mess. So yeah, we've got proof of Dan Heng being present with her, likely in the Alchemy Commission, while she's facing this matter head on, finding and rooting out another traitor. She seems overly eager and almost concerning when she mentions the idea of cleaning things up. In the special program material, by the way, when she was talking to Moza, he was mentioning cleaning quite casually. She mentioned it in a more hostile way, because she's got a commission to clear out that resulted in her and her teacher getting exiled. So we've got all of this mess going on, where the preceptors are still a massive issue. A part of me really wants it to lead to development involving Bailu, because, first off, she's a victim in all this that they assume isn't going to rebel. She's unable to grow, which is probably either due to the way in which she was born or the fact that they're actually sealing her power using that little shackle on her tail. Another thing that I noticed from this that is very significant, Jingliu has an ice blade there. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. She shouldn't have had her ice blade when she faced Hule. I don't know exactly when that fight with Hule takes place, but chronologically we know it happened before she created the ice blade because of Jingliu's own story. Jingliu's story specifies her decapitating his head before the sedation of Imbibe Illuminae, which is when she finally brought to the Mara and when she also realised what her true weapon was. So this can't just be, or at least a part of it can't just be his PTSD at play. It just can't, because it's illogical that she'd have this, unless the writers are making a mistake or the people behind creating this moment are making a mistake. She should have the ebony blade, that quote-unquote blade Yingjing is using and did forge. It was originally intact. That should be the weapon of choice she used when dealing with Hule. So, is Jingliu actually going to appear? I hope so. Would it be fun? Yes. Would it be what I want? Yes. This patch involving the Lawfu is very significant, and the thing is, it won't even end with this, I don't believe. Because I think it'll have a good stopping point after this little tourney, but we have a lot of things that are still ongoing plot lines for the Lawfu. Jingliu is significant here. She wants the abundance gone. Lucha being here is a concern. We still don't know what's in his coffin. We have the fact that it's not just the Lawfu preceptors that could be problematic, it could be any of the other sets of preceptors as well, because this research probably isn't just limited to them. The Disciples of Sanctus Medicus, as much as their involvement in the original Lawfu story wasn't the best, what they're doing is concerning, and no one can fight that. And their direct involvement with certain factions within the Lawfu still houses a lot of questions, and we know that there's not only the set that was present on the Lawfu, that they just seem to passively exist within the Xianzhou. So there's a chance we will encounter them again on other ships. And then something interesting that I also noticed on rewatch that hyper concerns me. This guy has a lot of hidden stuff in his trailer regarding to the abundance. A lot of subliminal messaging. The allusion to potentially turning the Borosin and other abundance monsters into food. Look at this. Keep in mind the association with the abundance and, for example, the deer. The fruit that was produced on the trees was peaches, and here we have a peach. This guy is quite concerning with his potential willingness to look at things of the abundance and make a potential use for them. What is he seeking? And how is that going to impact Fei Xiao? We know he wants to save her. Does that mean he's willing to resort to some of these strategies in order to do so? It's like, so far, he's working to prevent Hule leaving in order to hopefully find a cure for Fei Xiao. But how would you even create a cure utilizing him? It's like, obviously, we know this guy is traumatized due to his past. Due to what happened during the War of Abundance 30 years ago, it seemed to really push this guy to his limit, and seeing all those people die. And then he has a quote specifically about the downfall of the Xianzhou people reflected in Zhuyi and Hanya, in that they can't live well and they can't die well. Both sides of that coin. And then here we are with this. His focus in this trailer, which I noticed the peach the first time around, but there's so much more. The dishes are potentially made like in reference to the enemies of the Xianzhou that are partially connected to the abundance. It's quite concerning. And this guy is at the central situation involving this mess. And now we know about a potential fallback of the people of the Foxian race present here. And we know that originally they did worship the abundance. Those were no tails and 9 fated deaths are without any choice but to move forward. It's interesting to say the least. So yeah, no, 2.5 has a lot of potential to be really interesting and to set up more relating to the Xianzhou's entire story. I'm hoping, really hoping here, that we get to indulge in Tauron getting absolutely messed up. Dan Fun can potentially get some revenge. I'm hoping, long term, that Bailu won't fall to a side. She should remain important to the Xianzhou story, as should most, if not all, of the High Cloud Quintet. After all, Blade/Yingjing is connected to the entity that actually is responsible for the birth of the disciples of Sanctus Medicus. We don't know if Xianzhou is still around though, because there's a Pandora's box situation going on with them where they believe Xianzhou is stored inside the shackling prison within a box, but we don't know if that box has something in it or if it's empty. And we won't know until they open it. So here we are with potentially Xianzhou still being around. And then there's the destruction. Phantilia has interfered in 2 different ways now, both with the Ambrosial Arbor crisis and now with the Borisin. It doesn't bode particularly well that the Alliance is being attacked on 2 different fronts. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. And if you did, then I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed. It always helps out for you guys to push the channel forward and to hear your opinions on this. Please let me know. After all, the lore of this game is incredibly fun to discuss. So until next time, take care of yourselves, guys.